There comes a moment in every person's life when inspiration runs out. The books stop working. The seminars stop working. The videos, the quotes, the posters on the wall, none of it moves you anymore. And in that moment, you are left with only one tool, the oldest tool there is, and that tool is force. You have to force yourself to become disciplined because discipline was never going to arrive on its own. Nobody wakes up one morning suddenly transformed into a disciplined person by accident. Discipline is not a gift that falls into your lap. It is a decision you make with clenched teeth on the days you least feel like making it. I want to be honest with you about something most motivational speakers won't tell you. Discipline does not feel good in the beginning. It is not exciting. It does not give you the rush that a new idea gives you or the thrill that a big dream gives you when you first imagine it. Discipline in its early days feels like resistance. It feels like dragging your own body out of a warm bed into a cold morning. It feels like closing your mouth when you want to say something you'll regret. It feels like putting down the food you crave and picking up the work you've been avoiding. Nobody claps for you in that moment. Nobody sees the small, private battles you fight before the sun even comes up. War. But those battles, fought alone and unseen, are exactly what separate the people who talk about success from the people who actually build it. Let me tell you why force is necessary. If you wait until you feel like being disciplined, you will wait forever because feelings are fickle. Feelings change with your mood, your sleep, your last conversation, the weather outside your window. If you're disciplined, you do not actually have discipline. You have a mood that occasionally cooperates with your goals. Real discipline shows up whether you feel like it or not. And in the beginning, before it becomes a habit, before it becomes who you are, you have to force it into existence through sheer will. You have to grab yourself by the collar, so to speak, and say, we are doing this today, whether we feel like it or not. I think of discipline like a muscle because that comparison, worn out as it is, happens to be true. Nobody walks into a gym for the first time and lifts the heaviest weight in the building. It is heavy. It resists you. Your body fights back against it, but you force the weight up anyway, again and again, day after day, and slowly, not overnight, but slowly, the muscle grows. What was once impossibly heavy becomes manageable. What was once manageable becomes light. The weight has not changed. You have changed. Discipline works exactly the same way. The first time you force yourself to wake up early, it feels brutal. The 10th time, it feels difficult. The 100th time, it feels normal. CDFs and D. And somewhere past the 100th time, waking up early simply becomes who you are, and you no longer need to force it because the force has done its job and built something permanent in its place. So many people are waiting for motivation to build them a disciplined life. And motivation is simply not built for that job. Motivation is a spark. It is useful for lighting the fire, but it was never designed to keep the fire burning through the long, cold nights. That job belongs to discipline. And discipline, especially in its infancy, requires force. The raw, unglamorous act of making yourself do the thing you do not want to do, purely because you know somewhere deep down that the future you are building depends on it. Let's talk about the excuse, because I know them well, I've used most of them myself at some point in my life. I'll start Monday. I'm just not a morning person. I work better under pressure. I need to be in the right mood first. These excuses feel true in the moment you say them, and that is exactly what makes them dangerous. An excuse that feels true is far more destructive than an excuse that feels false, because you don't even fight against it. You simply accept it and move on with your day a little poorer in discipline than you were the day before. Force yourself to catch these excuses the moment they appear. Force yourself to say out loud, if you have to, that is an excuse, not a reason, and then do the thing anyway. I want to talk about the small hours of the day, because that is where discipline is either built or destroyed. It is not built in the big dramatic moments. The day you finally quit the job, the day you finally launch the business, the day you finally give the speech. Those are the results of discipline, not the source of it. The source of discipline is found in the small, boring, repetitive hours where nobody is watching. The hour you spend reading instead of scrolling. The hour you spend training your body instead of resting it prematurely. The hour you spend planning your week instead of drifting through it. Force yourself into those small hours, because they compound quietly without applause until one day the compound interest of 1,000 disciplined hours produces a life that looks, from the outside, like an overnight success. Okay? Now, I want to address something important, because I don't want you walking away from this speech thinking discipline is about punishing yourself. It is not about hatred for who you currently are. It is about respect for who you are capable of becoming. There is a difference between forcing yourself out of self-loathing and forcing yourself out of self-respect. The first will burn you out and leave you bitter. The second will build you up brick by brick into a person who trusts their own word. And that, more than any external achievement, is what discipline ultimately gives you, the ability to trust yourself. When you tell yourself you will wake up at 5, and you actually wake up at 5, you are not just gaining an early morning. You are gaining proof, real evidence, that your word to yourself means something. Most people break promises to themselves so often that they've stopped believing their own commitments. Discipline reverses that. Every small promise kept becomes a deposit into the account of self-trust, and a person who trusts themselves is a person who can be forced into nothing by outside circumstances, because they have already forced themselves into greatness from the inside. Yeah. Let's talk about pain for a moment, because there are two kinds of pain in this life, and you will pay one of them whether you like it or not. There is the pain of discipline, and there is the pain of regret. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. It shows up in the morning, uncomfortable but brief, and it fades the moment you get moving. Pain of regret weighs tons. It shows up years later, in the quiet moments, when you look back at a life you could have built and didn't, and it does not fade, it only grows heavier with time. Force yourself to pay the lighter debt today, because the heavier debt collects interest, and it always comes due. I also want to speak to those of you who feel like you have already fallen too far behind to force yourself into discipline now. Maybe you feel like the habit is already lost, like the years already wasted cannot be recovered, like everyone around you started earlier and built more. Let me tell you something freeing. Discipline does not care how late you start. It only cares whether you start. The tree that was planted 20 years too late is still better planted today than never planted at all. Force yourself to begin exactly where you are, with exactly what you have, and stop waiting for a perfect starting line that does not exist and never will. Here is what I want you to do. Tonight, before you go to sleep, decide on one thing, just one, that you will force yourself to do tomorrow morning, regardless of how you feel when the alarm goes off. It does not need to be dramatic. It needs to be doable, and it needs to be done without negotiation. No snoozing the decision, no renegotiating with yourself at 6 in the morning when the bed feels warmer than your goals feel urgent. Force yourself through that one action, and then do it again the next day and the day after that until the force is no longer necessary, because the discipline has taken root and become who you are. Discipline built through force in the beginning becomes freedom later on. That is the great paradox nobody tells you about. The very thing that feels like a cage in the early days becomes the thing that sets you free later, free from chaos, free from regret, free from the exhausting cycle of starting over every single Monday because you never followed through the week before. Force yourself today so that one day, not too far from now, you no longer have to force yourself at all. The discipline will simply be who you are, and that person, steady, consistent, unshaken by mood or circumstance, is the person capable of building a life that most people only ever talk about. I want to talk about identity because that is really what this is all about underneath the surface. You are not simply trying to force yourself into a habit. You are trying to force yourself into a new identity from someone who intends to be disciplined into someone who actually is disciplined. And identity is stubborn. It does not change because you had one good day. It changes through repetition, through evidence, stacked upon evidence, until the old identity can no longer survive under the weight of the new one you have been building. Every time you force yourself through the resistance, you are casting a vote for the person you are becoming. One vote does not decide the election, but enough votes cast consistently over time eventually do. Think about the people you admire most, the ones who seem, from a distance, to have it all figured out. I promise you, every single one of them has a version of this same story. A version where they forced themselves through a season of discomfort that nobody else witnessed. The disciplined athlete forced themselves through the early mornings when the crowd wasn't there to cheer. The disciplined business owner forced themselves through the quiet, uncertain years before the results showed up. The disciplined parent forced themselves through exhaustion to show up fully for their family day after day, without recognition or reward. Discipline is always paid in private, even when the results are eventually displayed in public. Do not let the polished outcome fool you into thinking the process was easy. It never is. Okay? I also want to warn you about comfort, because comfort is discipline's quiet enemy. Comfort does not announce itself as dangerous. It whispers reasonable things. It tells you that you deserve a break, that tomorrow is soon enough, that one missed day will not matter. And on its own, one missed day truly does not matter much. But comfort rarely stops at one day. Comfort is a slow negotiator, and if you let it win small battles, it will eventually demand the war. Force yourself to recognize comfort's voice for what it is and treat every small surrender to it as the serious matter it actually is, even when it looks harmless in the moment. Finally, understand that force is not meant to be permanent. Force is the scaffolding you use, while the real structure, discipline, and eventually identity is being built underneath it. Once the structure can stand on its own, you can remove the scaffolding, and what remains is something sturdy, something that no longer needs to be forced because it has become the natural shape of who you are. That is the goal. Not a lifetime of gritting your teeth, but a season of forced effort that produces a lifetime of effortless consistency. So stand up, force yourself up, if that is what it takes today, and begin